Hello everybody, welcome back. Craig Peterson here on WGAN, online as well, of course, at craigpeterson.com. You know, consumers are always looking for protection, and we have various consumer protection agencies out there, and Congress is trying to do something to protect our privacy. The big questions to me are, where are the lines? Is Congress really going to help us or hurt us, right? All of the normal things you would expect me to question of Congress and these laws, rules, and regulations. GDPR came out a couple of years ago over in the European Union, and it was designed to help protect not just the data, but the identity of citizens of the European Union. GDPR, by the way, stands for the General Data Protection Regulation, and it gave them a bunch of rights, including the right to know what data a company was keeping about them, keeping on them. It also gave them the right to be forgotten. That if you saw something you didn't like on Google results or some other website, you could request that that data be taken down, and they had to take it down. Now, I kind of like this because of some of the warnings I've given my kids. I can see it happening. But I like it when you've got people in their teens and 20s posting stupid stuff online, right? The silly things that kids do in college and before. And it's online and it lives forever. And now you are looking for a job. The first thing an employer is going to do is do a Google search for you. And once they've done that Google search, guess what? Comes up those videos, those photos of you doing things, and also, you know, some of the stuff that you had posted, some of the stuff you had written, some of the tweets that you put out. So how does that all work? How are you going to get rid of it if you don't have the right to be forgotten? And there are obviously multiple sides to that one, but I kind of like that. Well, if you are a business person, your business has a responsibility now to comply with these laws. And what a lot of businesses in the U.S. did is they said, "Ooh, we're not going to be able to comply with all these GDPR rules and regulations. So we are just going to block access to anyone coming from the European Union." And they did that, and some of them, it took months to get their systems rewritten and designed so that they could handle those new rules and regulations from the European Union. Well, that's all well and good, but now you can't just do that kind of blocking anymore, because those types of rules and regulations are now here in the United States. As of January 1st, 2020, our friends in California have a new law in place. It's called the California Consumer Privacy Act. That's the CCPA. And that act is basically doing the same thing that is being done in the European Union. And if you think you're compliant, or you're not going to have to comply with this, I'm going to go through some stats I think might really surprise you. California also has something called the PDPA, which is the Personal Data Protection Act. Not California, I mean Singapore, okay? So there's a growing set of regulations. There's regulations in most states to some degree. States like New York and Massachusetts and obviously California have laws that are much more restrictive about personal information, and there are more and more of them coming online. So it frankly is a very big deal. But here's what people are starting to realize. There's a company out there called Capgemini, and there was some research published last fall by Capgemini. And they found that only 28% of firms that must comply with the European regulations were actually in compliance. So about a quarter of the firms, as of last year, in the United States that were required to be compliant with the European Union were actually compliant. So that means 75% of businesses here in the United States that have customers or even people visiting their websites from the European Union, 75% of those businesses are not compliant. And yet, at the same time, there was research that was done of companies asking them, are you compliant with the European rules? And 78% said, yes, we're confident that we are compliant, even though an actual audit showed the exact opposite, that almost 75%, it was actually, 72% were actually compliant. So more than 18 months into the California regulation, how many of our companies that have people visiting our websites from California or that have customers who are based in California, how many of us are compliant? It's not as though this came out of nowhere. This rule, this regulation has been in place now for over a year. It's just that as of January 2020, this regulation has some serious teeth to it. Now, we got a call from another company who is based in New York and has some of their workers out in California, and definitely has customers in California. So they absolutely have a legal nexus to California. And they said, hey, we want to make sure that we're compliant with this new California Consumer Data or Privacy Act. So we put together a proposal for them, and just to examine everything. Now, they have some of their own systems, some of their own software that they're keeping customer data on and everything else. And it's going to cost them $30,000 to $50,000 just to have us do a deep dive for them. Now, this is a bigger company. They have some of the money to do it. Frankly, they have all of the money to do it, and they should be doing it. At this point, I don't know if they're going to do it or not. But that $30,000 to $50,000 is just to look at their existing systems and tell them what they need to do. So this growing set of regulations in California, and regulations that are growing nationwide, because the federal government is looking to take those California regulations and put them in place. So this growing set of regulations, while I think crucial to consumers, and something that businesses should have been doing a couple of years ago because of GDPR, the European regulations, and something businesses should have been doing anyways, is not going to be cheap. It is just not cheap. And then if companies are found to be out of compliance, wow, now it's really not cheap. Because if you are out of compliance, penalties upwards of 4% of annual global revenue. So the 12 major fines that have been handed down since this European regulation went into effect in May 2018 is almost $400 million spent on fines alone. So cost of compliance is very big, but cost of non-compliance is even bigger. So the truth is that privacy is almost dead. So we've thrown our hands up. We know our private information is out there. And this is government's response to try and get control of it. And if you are a business, make sure you do at least these 3 steps, and I can send them to you. Just email me at craigpeterson.com. I'll be glad to do this for you. 1, identify your sensitive data. 2, know who has access to it and who has accessed it, and implement controls over the access and make sure you keep them updated. So there you go. You'll find a little more about this online at craigpeterson.com. I'm always more than glad to send you guys more information. You know, I don't charge for any of that stuff, right? And you just email me at craigpeterson.com. I'll be glad to get back to you. All right, take care, everybody. We got, only one more segment. We're going to talk about the Jeff Bezos hack and online employment scams. Talking fast next time. Stick around.